Hi, I'm Alex Kister, and I am the creator of the Mandela Catalogue. And this is the beginning of a pretty lengthy series I plan on doing, where I cover most, if not all, of the official Mandela Catalogue episodes, maybe giving some backstory, giving some insight as to my thought processes behind everything, maybe some of the inspirations, etc. And before I go any further, I just want to specify that the series is not done by any means. I know that a director would typically do a commentary on a project after it's finished, but I figured since it's going to be a bit of a wait between now and Volume 6, I feel like I would just give a little something just because I don't really have much planned because I'm knee deep in a much bigger project that I'll elaborate on at the end of the video. So, the roots of the Mandela Catalog actually come from my high school creative writing class, which was 2021, a couple of months before I graduated. And during this time, I was kind of on the tail end of figuring out my religious crisis that I was going through at the time as someone that grew up Christian and was kind of coming to terms with the possible reality that it's not all what I thought it was going to be, particularly in terms of the afterlife and just the thought that, you know what, maybe there isn't actually a heaven for me to go to after death was something that was very mentally taxing for me at the time. And when we had this project that we were doing in this writing class, it was one where we had to write 9 separate poems. And I did something a little more conceptual where all the poems were tied together. And long story short, the kind of story that I built around this concept was about this guy who was trapped in a desert for all eternity with chains on his ankles, kind of hopeless and looking for the smallest bit of hope. Um, and while he's trapped here, he comes across an oasis that a lot of people live at that worship this other deity that disguises itself as something truly loving and gracious and all that good stuff. But then later finds out, oh, not quite. And I thought that it ended up being pretty decent for something that I literally wrote the entirety of the night before the project was due because I forgot to or I was procrastinating. I don't even really remember, but I ended up getting a pretty good grade on it. And I thought that that was the end of it. But the summer afterwards, I kind of realized that throughout that spring, I was kind of becoming a melting pot of knowledge on analog horror, which was something that I was really interested at the time because that's kind of when Local 58 and Gemini Home Entertainment was really piquing my interest. And I thought it was really cool. And I remember joining the subreddit for analog horror, and I don't know what it's like now, but at the time they had this thing called like fan made, or it was like fan made Fridays or something. It was something where every Friday you could post your own video, your own analog horror video, and it kind of made me think like, like should I try? Like I don't really know what I would do, but I kind of like this stuff, like this format of found footage because I've been a found footage fan all my life. I grew up on internet horror, and I had a lot of ideas for what some more subtle horror could be that I really wanted to try out, but I just didn't have the capabilities of like filming and stuff. I just didn't know anything, and eventually an idea did come to me, and that was, oh, I have that poem project from a couple months ago that kind of started some world building for. I could totally make like some kind of video adaptation of this, but I just didn't really know how to go about presenting a biblical kind of very surreal story in analog format because it's all about, like the VHS stuff and that whole aesthetic. And then I was kind of thinking about some old religious media that kind of got to me as a kid. And that's where the whole Beginner's Bible cartoon came into play. Something that I remembered watching as a kid when I would be in daycare at church while my parents were in the service. And one of my favorite aspects of analog horror around that time was the idea of like a pre-existing media, either in real life or in universe, getting corrupted in some way and having details changed in such a drastic way. And I figured that that's what I would do with those cartoons. And I didn't know the littlest thing about video editing at the time. All I had was my iPhone. I used iMovie for this, and then sometimes I would go into Pixelmatic, which is like basically like a pseudo Photoshop for your phone, just for the still graphics and stuff. And the most editing that I've done up until that point was a Black Ops Cold War funny moments compilation. And that's all I knew. So I figured, you know what? This should be simple enough. I'm just going to do this very painstakingly. And I sure did. And I don't know how I knew about the whole 4x3 thing because I didn't even know that was a thing at the time, but that ended up working in my favor. Um, and then I remember, like the big scare, quote unquote, in Overthrown, which was is Gabriel showing his spooky smile, very inspired by other analog horrors at the time, kind of doing similar stuff with the whole facial distortion thing that I was very fond of at the time, and still am to an extent. But I feel like that was kind of the highlight. That's what people remembered the most. I remember that really hit the nail on the head when I showed my mom. She thought it was pretty creepy from what I remember. And I thought, like, I'll just keep this in my phone. Like, I'll wait until the Reddit shows it's Fan Made Friday, you can post it. And then I did. And I remember it got, like, pretty decent reviews. Reviews as in the comments of the post thought it was pretty decent. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. I really was not expecting that at all. So when I uploaded it to the channel, this was about the time that I had to start thinking about, like, where do I go from here? Because the reception was pretty good on Overthrown, and I wanted to do more of it, because that praise meant a lot to me, and I was not expecting that at all. So I decided that this was going to be the first episode of a series called Time Shift Archives, where it would be an anthology analog horror series based around these pre-existing media like kid shows or sitcoms or whatever, kind of edited as an abstraction of what it's supposed to be and maybe kind of going against the whole point. Because I felt like that was kind of interesting and it was going to play into the Mandela effect foreshadowing. And I thought that was kind of fun. That's kind of what the story was going to be based around on. But I realized, I kind of liked this story that I was building with Overthrown. And I liked the poem project that I was basing it off of too. And while I didn't want to do much more with the poems themselves, I kind of wanted to kind of tell the same story, continue it, but just in a very different way. And then that would lead into what is now known as Volume 1, which we will get to in the next episode. And that one will be quite a interesting, longer video because Volume 1 has a very weird, strange backstory to how it came to be. So that'll be out soon, I'm sure. But I just wanted to mention that what I was kind of talking about at the beginning of this video. The reason why there's kind of a pause in main video production right now is because I have been working on the Mandela Catalogue movie for almost 3 years at this point. And right now is just a point where I'm in the writing process, and like the end of the writing process where I'm working on the shot list and stuff too. So I'm really trying to get that done as soon as I can. If it gets to a point where there is a empty space between that and filming, I will try to get out as much YouTube stuff as I possibly can. But that's kind of why I have been kind of, not as active. If I was not working on the movie, writing it for the past 3 years or so, because this is this has been my first time writing a feature-length script. If I wasn't doing that, I would have gotten Mandela Catalogue videos out much faster and sooner. But the reason why they take so long, and especially recently with these really long pauses, is because whenever I'm done with a big video like Volume 5, I just grind on the script for a long time. And I am pretty much finished with the script now for the movie. And I'm working on the shot list and all the other fun stuff that I'm learning how to do on the way. So, yeah, just want to say thank you for sticking around. I appreciate all of your patience very, very much. And if you're still here in 2025, true Mandela Catalogue fans, rise up. fist emoji. Um, thank you again. And stay tuned for more director's commentary videos. I will try to do these semi regularly. But yeah, um, if you want to support me during this time, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which I will have in the description. You can check out my merch. I have shirts and hoodies for Mandela Catalog and Mystifying Oracle. I have posters, stuff like that. Yeah, that'll be all down below. Again, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one.